Sayyiduna Umar radiallahu anhu right away, inshallah, so that we not be late for the brothers who are attending. So we stopped by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessings in the last time about the precedences of Sayyiduna Umar radiallahu anhu. We mentioned there are many things in politics, in trade, in economy, in the judiciary system, in so many fields of the life. Sayyiduna Umar radiallahu anhu, this great Sahabi, he was the first to start those things. But before we get into, we continue, we talked about Hijrah last time, and that he was the first one who started the Hijri calendar. And he was the one who chose the Hijrah to be the beginning of our history and the marking point in our calendar. And we mentioned the story about that, and we talked about Hijrah. But before we continue about the things that Sayyiduna Umar radiallahu anhu was the first one to start, we have one more story, very interesting story, to show you the trust of the believer in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to show you the great respect that Sayyiduna Umar radiallahu anhu had for the righteous ones. And also it shows you one of the karamat, one of like miracles of the Sahaba of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Imam Ibn Hibban narrates in his Sahih this story about Sayyiduna Abu Muslim al-Khawlani radiallahu anhu, one of the great Sahaba. So he was in the time of Al-Aswad al-Anasi. This is a person who claimed to be a prophet after Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Of course, he was a liar. And he caught Sayyiduna Abu Muslim al-Khawlani radiallahu anhu. He caught him and he asked him to believe in him as a messenger. And of course, Sayyidina Abu Muslim al-Khawlani radiallahu anhu, of course, did not believe in him. So this person, Al-Aswad al-Anasi, he decided to burn Sayyiduna Abu Muslim al-Khawlani radiallahu anhu. So he set up a fire and he decided to burn him. And what happened is that Sayyiduna Abu Muslim al-Khawlani radiallahu anhu, he got into the fire and he was thrown into the fire, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected him and the fire did not harm him in any way. This is an authentic hadith in Sahih Ibn Hibban. Why we're mentioning this story and what's the relation between this story and Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, we're going to come to this. But the point is, when you are with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah can stop the laws that He made as normal, natural, consistent laws. He can stop it any time. The fire cannot burn unless Allah commands it to burn. The knife cannot cut until Allah and unless Allah commands it to cut. We don't believe that, as some people believe, that Allah put independent powers in things and they operate by themselves. We never believe in this. We believe that Allah is the one who let these things operate in every second. They don't have any independent power from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's of a clear belief of Muslims. The fire doesn't burn by itself. It does not have like a power that works independently from Allah. No, that's not the belief of the Muslim. Same thing, the knife. Same thing, the medicine. If you believe the medicine can cure you without Allah's will and command, then you're not a Muslim. You're not a Muslim if you think medicine can heal you without Allah's permission. Or if you think that this doctor can give shifa, he has shifa, he gives shifa. If you think that he can do it independently from Allah, that he has a power to do it independently from Allah, you're not a Muslim anymore. Same thing, the fire. And we all know the story of who? Sayyiduna Ibrahim alayhi salam. قُلْنَا يَا نَارِ, we said, O fire, كُونِي بَرْدًا وَسَلَامًا عَلَى إِبْرَاهِيم, be cold and safe on Ibrahim. Sayyiduna Abu Muslim al-Khawlani radiallahu anhu, the fire did not harm him. He came to Al-Madinah al-Munawwara of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam after the passing away of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he put his camel next to the door of the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he entered and he found one of the poles of the masjid. He prayed at that pole, and who saw him? Sayyiduna Umar radiallahu anhu. So we were talking about Sayyiduna Umar's relationship with the pious people, the righteous people, Ahlul Bayt, the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with these categories of people. And we mentioned his story with Sayyidina Uwais al-Qarani, and how he asked him for dua and showed him respect, etc. And we talked about his relationship with Sayyida Fatima and Ahlul Bayt, etc. So this is another example of his relationship and his respect and his honoring of the people of righteousness and piety. He saw him and he said, "Who's that person?" They said, "He's from the people of Yemen." He said, "What did the man who was burnt by the liar do? What happened to the man who was burnt by the liar?" Who's the liar? Al-Aswad al-Anasi, that person who claimed to be a prophet after our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then they said, ذَلِكَ Abdullah ibn Thawb. So maybe he just, he did not want to tell that it's me. He said, that is Abdullah, son of Thawb. He mentioned his name, he did not mention his title. But Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, with his cleverness and his hadas or farasa, he said, by Allah, are not you the man? Are not you the man? Are you not the man? He said, by Allah, it's me. Then he hugged him and started crying. Sayyiduna Umar radiallahu anhu. Look, Sayyidina Umar with this strictness, with his great personality and strict, but still, as we mentioned earlier in the beginning, he has a very soft heart radiallahu anhu. He had 2 lines on his cheeks out of the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is a person, as they say, his tear is in his eye. He's a very soft-hearted man, radiallahu anhu arda. So he cried and he got him until he put him between himself and Sayyiduna Abu Bakr, and he said, Alhamdulillah, الذي لم يمتني حتى أراني في أمة محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم من فعل به كما فعل بإبراهيم خليل الله عليه السلام. All praise and thanks be to Allah who did not cause death to me until I saw someone who was saved from the fire just like Ibrahim alayhi salam was saved from the fire. That is Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu's relationship with this person and how he honored him and how he respected him. And this shows you how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just as He protected the prophets and the righteous ones, He can protect you anytime. Just you need to be with Him as they were with Him. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our hearts always present with Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sayyiduna Umar radiallahu anhu, as we mentioned, 10 years of his khilafah, of khilafah, he led the ummah for 10 years. We talked about his inspiration, his guided or divine guidance, that he got guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He approved, or his opinions were matched, his opinions matched the revelation, the Quran, many times. So this is, as Rasulullah said sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, إِن يَكُنْ إِنَّ مِنْ أُمَّتِي محدثون فَإِيَّكُمْ مِنْهُمْ أَحَدٌ فَإِنَّهُ عُمَرٌ. That among my ummah there are people who are guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They have the right opinion, they say the right opinion, and if there's someone among them in my ummah, it would be Umar radiallahu anhu. So this is a person who is guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whose opinions were amazingly right and great. And this is why we find the scholars, they wrote books about his precedents, things that he was the first one to do. And this shows us the flexibility in our religion. It's not like some Muslims, they think Anything you do that the Sahaba did not do, that's haram, that's wrong, that's bid'ah. That's not correct. We see Sayyiduna Umar radiallahu anhu did many things, even in the religion. He did many things that the Sahaba did not do, that Sayyiduna Abu Bakr didn't do, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't do. But those things, they do not contradict any principle in the Quran or the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. On the contrary, all of those things, they serve the Quran and Sunnah. They serve the purposes of Quran and Sunnah. And that is one of the amazing qualities of Sayyiduna Umar, is that he was never ever a literalist person. As now we see many Muslims, they did not have any knowledge. They did not learn from the scholars. They just read some ayat or some ahadith, and now they think they are even able to take rulings right away from Quran and Sunnah. That's the biggest disaster we face nowadays. If you're qualified and you reach the level of those scholars, then you can take the rulings. Otherwise, you should just be silent and listen to the scholars. This is what we have to do, because that's not our job. That's not our qualification. But Sayyidina Umar, he was the man. He was the man of that task. This is why you see he would look at the spirit of the text, as they say, not the letter of the text, the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law. As we will see many examples about this particular characteristic from Sayyidina Umar, it needs by itself many talks. We're going to dedicate some talks to it with the examples, how Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu focused on the purposes of the Sharia, the purposes of the law, of the Islamic law. Maqasid al-Sharia, we talked about the goals of Sharia, protecting one's self, protecting one's honor, protecting one's religion, protecting one's property, etc. That is what Sharia aims at. This is why when famine spread in one of the years in his Khilafah, famine spread and people were starving to death, he stopped one of the penalties or the punishments, which is cutting off the hand of the thieves or the robbers. He stopped it. Why? Because people have no food to eat. So he's looking at the purpose of Sharia. If people have no food to eat, you cannot cut all people's hands. They're taking just to eat. They're not taking just to increase their wealth. So he stopped that punishment for that time. That is Sayyiduna Umar radiallahu anhu. We have many examples. We're going to talk about this inshallah later. The point is, his life is amazingly full of those new things. He was an intelligent person, radiallahu anhu. We can start talking about the judiciary system. If you don't have justice and if you don't have judiciary system, is that right? Judiciary system in the country, in the state, then that will be a definitely failing state. It will never be a successful state. Number one, you must have judiciary system. Number two, it must be independent from the executive system. It must be independent from the president, from the executive people who execute the commands. Judiciary system should be completely independent institute in the state. If you don't have it, it will be absolutely a failing state. And that's what we see in many Muslim countries, and you know, without naming, right? You know, if we call it qada, if the judiciary system, the court system is not good, nothing will be good in the state. It has to be good, it has to be independent. The judges and the justices must be chosen, or must be chosen from the people who are qualified, the people who are honest, who are trustworthy. If you have good judiciary system, that is one of the main components of the success of a state. If you don't, if you have bribes, as in our countries, if you have judges who are not qualified, it will be a failing state. Corruption will spread, officials and big officials that no one will bring them to account, no one can issue a judgment against them, it will be absolutely a mess and it will not be a successful state in any way. Sayyiduna Umar radiallahu anhu was aware of the importance of the judiciary system, and he radiallahu anhu established this system, and he sent a very important message to Sayyiduna Abu Musa al-Ash'ari radiallahu anhu, who was one of his governors. This message now it's being taught in many institutions. They teach it so that people learn that those principles of qada, of the judiciary system, it was established by the Muslims before these people come, and before they talk to us about the judiciary system and rights of people and human rights and whatever. Sayyiduna Umar says, Amma ba'd, to begin with, qada is a very important obligation. It's a very important obligation in the community. Why? People will wrong one another. People will violate other people's rights. So there must be someone to give people their rights, right? Who will do that? The court, right? The court system, the judges. The judges do what? They issue the command, right? Then who will execute it? They call it as-sulta tanfidiyya, the executive authority, right? So we have in every state 3 authorities, right? We have sulta tashri'iyya, and sulta qada'iyya, and sulta tanfidiyya. We have the legislative system or body, if you like, right? And that's the shura and the parliament, whatever. And we have the executive body, those who will act or who will execute the rulings. And we have the judiciary court system or the court system. This is how the states are built. And in Islam we had all of that. And it's Sahaba radiallahu anhu who established those systems, especially with the expansion of the Muslim Ummah, particularly in the time of Sayyiduna Umar radiallahu anhu. The Muslim states started expanding, and we have now an army, and we have so many soldiers, and we have now revenues, and we have lands that are being conquered, and we have now problems, disputes. All that needs organization. This is why you find Sayyidina Umar, mashallah, in everything you find he made a system for this, system for this, system for this. That's why he was, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam prophesied that I did not see someone who's doing like him, radiallahu anhu, as in the dream he saw. We mentioned many times. So that showed that Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu was special in his khilafah and his leadership. We need to learn. Now everyone might be responsible for a small state, if you can say. In your house, in your work, in your business, you need to see, you need to invent new things. You need to not to stick to the letter of the law. You need to look at the spirit of the law and achieve people's interests and give their right. So he said, Al-qada'u faridatun muhkama. The court system and judging among people is a very important obligation. وَسُنَّةٌ مُتَّبَعَةٌ فَافْهَمْ إِذَا أُدْلِيَ إِلَيْكَ. So when I send you this, when you get this message, try to understand. And when you receive opponents, try to understand what everyone is saying. Then give the judgment when it's clear for you. And be just and fair and treat all people equally. In your session, in your place, and even with your face. Allahu Akbar. Look, he's telling him, be fair among all people and treat people equally in their setting in front of you, and even in your look with your face. Allahu Akbar. We learned from our Shaykh one time that Sayyiduna Ali radiallahu anhu, he had a dispute with a Jew. And they came to Sayyiduna Umar radiallahu anhu, or another person, I forgot, I think Sayyiduna Umar. And when Sayyiduna Ali entered, Sayyiduna Umar said, Come ya Aba Turab, O Aba Turab. He gave him his title, which is, when you give someone his title, it's respect, right? Abu Muhammad, right? That's respect. So he said, Come Aba Turab, sit here. Then for the Jew, he called him just by his normal name. He said, so and so, come here. And Sayyidina Ali said, no, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. You started being unfair from now. You have to give him respect just as you give me respect. Allahu Akbar. Where is this? These are the characteristics of Islam and Muslims. Should be the characteristics of the Muslims, right? So, and to this extent, justice to this extent, yes. This is what we learned from our beloved sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Be fair even among your kids, even in kissing. If you kiss one kid, you have to kiss the other. This is how the Prophet taught sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And kids, they know and they observe, especially kids, they observe and they look. Wallahi, it's a like I feel it's a big sin if I do this. Oh, you kiss one kid and you leave the other. A'udhu billah. So he said, be fair among them in your session and with your face, and tell, or so that no noble person will even think to get something that doesn't belong to him from you. So be equal with all people, whether poor or rich, whether noble or normal people. Be fair with all of them, so that those noble ones, they will not think that if you give them a special treatment, so they never think that you're gonna give them something that is not theirs. So you're gonna give them only their right. وَلَا يَيْأَصَ ضَعِيفٌ مِنْ عَدْلِكَ. And also so that the poor, weak ones, they will not feel hopeless of getting justice from you. Treat all people, even with your face, even in their setting. SubhanAllah. البينة على من ادعى واليمين على من أنكر. If someone is claiming something against someone else, he has to provide the proof. You're accusing someone of something, you have to provide the proof. وَالْيَمِينُ عَلَى مَنْ أَنْكَرَ. Then the one who, if he denies, then he has to swear. Okay, that's from the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then he says, sulh, reconciliation is permissible among Muslims unless the reconciliation that makes haram as halal or halal as haram. And do not let, if you gave a judgment on something yesterday and then you thought that it was wrong, never feel embarrassed to change it and to return to the truth, because nothing can invalidate the truth. And changing your opinion and correcting your mistake is much better than continuing in falsehood. These are the main principles. Who does this? If you give a judgment and then you figured out it was wrong, never feel embarrassed to change, because as they say, better late than never, right? Better late than never, right? If you change and you figured out you were wrong in saying something, in issuing a judgment, these are the lessons, dear brothers and sisters, we need to take. This is why we're learning the stories of these great people, greatest people after the prophets, alayhim salatu wassalam. You say something, you issue a judgment, you make a decision. Sayyiduna Umar radiallahu anhu is saying to his governors, you change it. To the judges, you change your opinion, you change your judgment if you think you were wrong. That is called courage. Then you will be a courageous person, and you will be really a sincere person, because you're seeking the truth. You don't care, people will say, he changed, or you don't care. Then he said, الفهم فيما يتلجل في صدرك مما ليس في كتاب ولا في سنة واعرف الأشباه والأمثال ثم قس الأمور عند ذلك واعمل إلى أحبها لله وأشبهها بالحق فيما ترى. This means try to understand and think and reason things. If you don't find in the Quran and the Sunnah, try to bring your opinion and make analogy. Bring things that are similar. This issue, we don't have a text in the Quran or the Sunnah about it. It's a new thing. Well, he's saying, try to understand and find similar things in Quran and Sunnah and make what? Analogy. That is called qiyas. That is called qiyas, analogy. Right? That is the fourth main source of our Islamic law. Who knows the first source in the Islamic law? First source. Where do we take our law from? Come on, guys. Quran. Second, Hadith or Sunnah. Third, Ijma', which means what? Consensus of the Muslim scholars. Consensus. That's a law. That's the third source of the Islamic legislation or Islamic law. The fourth is Qiyas, analogy. So he's telling him, radiallahu anhu, try to make analogy between things, then choose the most beloved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the closest to the truth in your opinion. Radiallahu anhu. Then he says all Muslims should be trustworthy and you should accept their testimony except those who made some sins that make their testimony rejected, as mentioned in the Quran. Then he says, you judge by the appearance, means you judge by the exterior of people. You don't dig into their intentions because that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's domain. No one can judge people's intentions. He said, Allahu qad tawalla minkum as-sarair wa dara'a ankum ash-shubuhat. So you judge people by what you know, by what appear on them to be. You don't dig into their intentions, or you don't go and look for their sins or mistakes. No. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us, that, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us that we don't judge people's intentions because we don't know. We don't know. Then he said, وَإِيَّاكُمْ وَالْقَلَقُ وَالضَّجَرُ وَالتَّأَذِّي بِالنَّاسِ. Make sure you don't harm people, you don't get bored and get upset with people. Why he's giving this particular advice here to the judges? Because we know sometimes judges, because they have many people, many opponents coming every day, then they get just bored, right? And they get like annoyed, and they just now start they want to finish, and they don't look into the cases carefully, right? And I have seen this in our Muslim communities. I have seen this, and I have faced this myself. You find some committees or whatever, you raise something to them, shura, whatever, you raise something to them, then they just issue a judgment that is absolutely unfair. Why? Because they have no time. They say, we have no time for this. We have no time for headaches. We have no time for meetings. Subhanallah. Then what are you doing here? Go sit home. Go sit home. This is a big responsibility from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some Muslims, mashallah, they volunteer for everything. You find him in this job and in this committee and in this. Then he does nothing. He says, I have no time. Then go sit home. Don't take responsibility if you're not gonna give it its right. This is why you see sometimes in our masajid, in our Islamic centers, in our communities, in our Muslim communities, you see people wronging one another, people violating other people's rights. Why? You see, Wallah, I have no time for politics. He doesn't have time to call on the two opponents and listen from both of them. He doesn't have time. He just issued a judgment. I asked one of them, he issued a judgment against me. Once we sat, I told him, he said, this you have, I made this decision, etc. I told him, did you hear from me? Just one question. You heard from my opponent. Did you hear from me? He said, no. I said, Subhanallah. Subhanallah, you are not following the most basic principle of judging among people. I told him, they say in the Arab proverb, if someone comes to you and one of his eyes was plucked out, right? Is the verb right? Plucked out. Don't judge for him until you listen to his opponent, because maybe his opponent has his two eyes plucked out. Right? I told him, you don't even know that you're not even following the most basic principle of judging among people. You made a judgment against me and you did not even hear me and ask me. And he apologized. And he was courageous to apologize, and I got up and I kissed his head and I said, that's courageous, but now you have to give me my right. But he didn't. Anyway, it needs men. It needs men whose hearts are only dedicated to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And since